If a picture paints 1,000 words, then photojournalist David Burnett's repertoire must run into volumes. Over 5 decades, the American has covered news events in over 70 countries. He's also taken photos of every US president from JFK to Obama. An exhibition of that work is now on show in Sydney as part of the Reportage Festival of Photography.
Well, first of all, I'm a little freaked out that it is 50 years. I didn't ever think I would be in a position where anything I had participated in had lasted that long. But I started taking pictures when I was still in high school. I was basically 16 years old when I took the picture of John Kennedy. I just thought, I'm going to go see the president. And I had a camera. I had just been working for about a year on the school yearbook staff, and I had worked at a camera store one summer, so I had a camera. And I have to say, at the time, I was really disappointed in that picture when I developed it that night at home. It was seeming to me to be kind of underexposed, blurry, out of focus, and just not very interesting. I took the negatives, I clipped them into 5s, and I put them in an envelope, and I put them in a shoebox that I just was keeping all my negatives in. And I didn't look at that picture again for 35 years. And then 15 years ago, I was asked to do a president's show in Italy, and I got that film out again, and I looked at it, and that's not so bad. That kind of, you can recognize who that is. So the lesson being, don't throw anything away, because the way you look at your film and the way you edit your pictures, your attitudes will definitely change over time.
Presidents are photographed every day. How do you find something different in your photographs? How do you find a moment that is different from what every other photographer is doing?
I think photographers are very intuitive in how they see things, and I think we just react to it without necessarily being able to describe in words what it's about. You feel it. You really feel the pictures. I think photography is something that you see it, you feel it. If you had to describe it, it's much more difficult.
Who was the most charismatic president that you've taken a photograph of?
Well, I have to say, during the campaign in 2008, Barack Obama definitely had crowds unlike anything I'd ever seen before. Absolutely mesmerized, huge numbers. Hillary Clinton said, giving a speech is not being president, but he could really give a speech. Kind of the flip side of that, in a way that was very personable, I loved getting to know a little bit Gerald Ford. The president came to a couple of parties, and you see that he's just like a regular guy who's at the same time saddled with all that responsibility and the toughest and probably loneliest job in the world. But everybody brings something different to it, and the really interesting thing from a photographic point of view is to find those little moments that belie somebody's personality.
Do you have a favourite picture among the exhibition?
Well, there's a couple. There's the hair picture, which is the Clinton-Gore campaign in 1992, being interviewed by Larry King on CNN. And it was a funny little moment just before they went live. And yet, in a way, to me, the fact that they're having their hair checked out just seconds before they go on, that's kind of a lot of what presidential campaigning has become. It is that showbiz side that they don't feel they can neglect. They really have to deal with that. Nixon's resignation was a very heavy-duty, historic moment, and that wide-angle, wide-deluxe picture, it's a panoramic shot. That's really what the room looked like that day for someone standing on the press stand. Reagan and Gorbachev, the first summit in Geneva, there was just something about that moment that struck me. There was this moment when each is listening to their own, to his own interpreter, and they're sitting right next to each other, but it's like they're miles apart or continents apart. And those are, again, the little gestures of life that kind of betray what we're looking for.
What do you make of new technology where almost everyone now is a photographer?
Everybody's a photographer, there's no doubt about it, yeah. It's good and bad. I mean, speed should not be the only thing that determines what's important in our lives, and yet the fact that we have Instagram, we can post these pictures immediately, put something up on Facebook. There is something kind of attractive to that ability to share. At the same time, I think it's kind of dumb down and cheapen the whole impression that people have about photography. Just because I have a great shirt that I got at a freelance photographers meeting in Germany a couple of years ago, and it says, "You're not a photographer, you just own a camera." And it's, maybe people might see that as a little bit snooty, but in fact, there is something about, I think, very important about the reliance of society on professional photographers working with a certain code of ethics in terms of what they try to produce and how they try and show the world. That remains a very key element of how the free press needs to work. I had an editor years ago, John Derniak, who used to say that pound for pound, there's no more efficient information gatherer than the press photographer. And I still believe that.